money-hungry Gen Z hounds from applying to entry-level banking jobs. And there's even a litany of terrifying guides on...
Oh my gosh. As you might know by now, one-way interviews are kind of our thing. We've spent the past 5 years helping candidates just like you prepare for them and figure out what's going on. The feeling is weird. It's strange to be speaking straight to a camera. Let's jump into Good Work's overview of these absolutely wonderful one-way video interviews that I'm sure you all enjoy.
Over the past 2 decades, one-way video interviews in which applicants record themselves answering questions into their webcams while a little timer ticks down have become commonplace in the self-whoring humiliation ritual we all know as applying for jobs. The biggest proponents of one-way video interviews say they're necessary for handling a high volume of job applications.
A lot of candidates definitely feel that this is just adding in more friction into an already difficult process and just trying to whittle the number of candidates down without actually necessarily allowing candidates to have a better interaction with companies. The one-way interview mainly is seen as a replacement of phone screenings, which is where companies, they basically, if you can imagine, used to call you up directly and do a vibe check with you to figure out if you're a great candidate or not. And today we have the one-way video interviews.
And eliminate human bias from the hiring process. However, these interviews have a horde of detractors, claiming that these programs not only feel dystopian and inhumane, but that they also serve up a veritable feast of ethical conundrums that may very well override their practical benefits. Ladies,
it's super interesting, especially these reviews, right? You can see it's from r/recruiting hell, a common place to complain about one-way video interviews and the companies that offer them. It definitely feels for a lot of people the marketing is disconnected from the experience. Companies often market these videos as being better for candidates. They can choose when to do their interviews, but it isn't a one-to-one replacement for in-person interviews. There's often still the in-person interview, and there's something very unnatural about speaking to a camera. At least that's what candidates have been telling me, and it seems they've been shouting out to the rest of the world. But for companies, these one-way video interviews are often marketed as a way to reduce bias in hiring because we're taking out at least a human-to-human experience. But whether that actually is the end result, I think is up for debate and discussion, as we will see.
Very well override their practical benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a murky case, but I'm going to solve it until it's cold, dead, and buried. Let's giddy up, partner.
It's funny because a lot of the results for Voomer come in through people typing into Google, what the hell is a one-way video interview? Why the hell do I have to do it? And then they come across our channel. So, interesting piece of context.
One-way video interviews were birthed as a way for companies to handle an outsized number of job applications after the internet made applying to jobs as easy as store-bought pie.
There's definitely this arms race between companies and candidates where candidates are trying to find the most effective and efficient way to apply for the most number of jobs, and companies are trying to filter through candidates and add in additional friction to slow applications down. But this is often only with high volume companies. There's a lot of companies who struggle to attract candidates at all, and then a few companies who have to deal with tens of thousands of applicants per position. So I think a lot of these one-way video interview tools are really set up for graduate positions and jobs which get a lot of volume in terms of application.
Famously easy type of pie. Today, job applications are now growing 4 times faster than actual job openings. And to meet this demand, big corporations use automated interview programs from third-party companies like HireVue, whose name is pretty much synonymous with these types of interviews. And while capital...
So I believe HireVue was acquired by Carlyle, which is one of the world's biggest private equity funds. And in terms of their ability to sell to corporations and government entities across the world, this technology of using one-way video interviews, they have been incredibly successful because the number of companies that use HireVue is really quite incredible. Not only for external hires where they're bringing new people into the company, but also for internal hires where people are trying to get a promotion or change department. I've also heard of it being used there too.
Capital B business might be jazzed about automated interviewing. The folks on the other side don't seem particularly gung or ho.
The dreaded one-way video interview.
That is so bad. I don't fucking know. and we're able to successfully do that.
Sometimes you'll mess up during a one-way video interview and then you figure out you only have one attempt. Some companies have different numbers of times you can respond to a interview question. So if you mess up, you might not get the chance to try again. It really depends on how they've set it up. A lot of these fail videos could be people and their only chance where they submitted something accidentally that they messed up on.
Not many job seekers I've spoken to have been excited about this. They feel like this is kind of impersonal, right? Like they've been asked these questions sitting by themselves. They don't really know what to do. Am I supposed to look in the camera? What am I supposed to do? How are they judging me?
You're put into this software environment where you see yourself on a screen and a timer and a question.
Definitely seeing yourself on a screen is often commented as one of the weirdest things by people who have used Voomer and worked with us. I'm not just looking at the camera and seeing a different person, I'm seeing myself. And with some of these platforms, they've actually added a ability for you to switch off your own camera so you don't have to look at yourself answering the question, which for me, I don't particularly enjoy looking at myself when I'm recording video. It's just something unnerving about it. But if you can't turn it off, I guess you have to get used to staring at yourself.
Worked as a campus recruiter for investment making. The first round for a lot of candidates would be the hire review portion. I've never met any person that actually likes the hire review recruiting process.
Now, before you grab your...
It's very curious to hear that from someone who seems to have been in a recruitment position as well. I'm trying to think back, have I ever met someone who enjoyed the hire review process? I would say I've met a few people and had conversations with people who didn't intensely dislike it. They didn't feel it was very good or very bad, but out of the majority of people I've interacted with and spoken to about HireView who are job candidates, they have not really enjoyed the process, and it's definitely taken them outside of their comfort zone.
Pitchfork and pierce it through that Mac screen, not everybody is as down on one-way interviews. Some people do seem to enjoy the flexibility they provide, while others...
This is the LinkedIn talent blog putting out these talking points, not necessarily candidates in /recruiting hell.
praise the accessibility they afford candidates. But to be honest with you, I didn't feel like calling all of these people and scheduling all those one-on-one calls was a particularly good use of my time.
There was one candidate who I spoke to who was really struggling to get through any of these one-way video interviews that they had faced. They felt that if there was voice recognition or speech to text that was involved because of a speech impediment caused by an illness they had had, unfortunately it was a cancer in the throat, they felt that that was actually the reason that was stopping them getting through. Now, whether it was or not is hard to say. I thought they were a great candidate on paper, but it is a question that comes up again and again. Is accessibility just about having the time to do something, or is it about the technology as well?
The process started to feel all tedious and inefficient. So I did what it feels like all of my favorite corporate juggernauts do. I got a team of smelly coders to build a one-way video interview program, and I conducted an asynchronous round of interviews that way.
Hello, insert name here.
I think I got Shane.
So, pretty bad in the past, to be honest.
With one-way interviews, I end up just talking to a black screen like I'm doing right now and looking into the dark abyss of the camera.
No one really enjoys doing these one-way interviews.
There's nobody to give you any kind of feedback.
That is definitely a big point, especially why Voomer was created in the first place, was to give people feedback about what is happening with you on the camera. How could you improve? Is there something about your tone, the way you're speaking, to make yourself more engaging? Are you moving around enough? Are you seeming engaged? Do you have good eye contact with the camera?
To no one on the other side feels a bit weird.
Sometimes I feel like I have too much time to speak and I don't know how to fill the empty space.
I've had some higher interviews that honestly seemed like a way to just validate that I was a human as opposed to a robot.
It just asks.
There are a lot of people who have that experience of sometimes I feel like I can say too much and they blow the timer. They go way over the 1.5 minutes and end up having to be cut off. And sometimes people who are answering a question and they can't figure out how to fill 60 seconds with an answer. Definitely one-way video interviews, the effect of it seems to be a lot more use of frameworks and people providing more structured responses to interview questions across the board. Whereas before, in in-person interviews, they might have tried to be a bit more dynamic, improvise, and answer in the moment rather than using the STAR framework.
Asked me about my experiences, why I wanted to work there, both of which I had already answered in my application.
I think a lot of
this duplication isn't just limited to the one-way video interview. I think throughout hiring processes, we're often retelling the same stories. We might have submitted our LinkedIn profile, but then we have to give a resume. And maybe especially for larger companies, we have to copy paste our different experience and set the dates so it's appropriately in their database when they go to look us up. And then in person, we'll bring along a resume, and it might seem like the interviewer has never heard of us as a candidate before. So I think this is a frustration with the care and thoughtfulness around candidates rather than necessarily this specific technology, but it's another expression of those same challenges.
people are getting very good at talking to the camera.
So I get surprisingly proficient at just talking to blank screens and answering questions.
This is another expectation that is that younger generations and anyone who grew up with a computer and a camera on their phone is somehow naturally able to speak to a camera and feel comfortable. It's this idea that we're all somehow able to produce TikToks or Snapchats without a moment's notice and to feel completely comfortable and confident on camera. As far as I've seen, there are the exceptions, right? Where people who are just fluid on camera, they can naturally eat it up. But that's always been the case. Actually, it seems like now more than ever, people are more self-conscious about what they put online and the videos they post. And so these one-way video interviews might be just getting in on the point that most people feel anxious about in their digital life more broadly.
How do one-way interviews make you feel?
One-way interviews are not generators of good feelings.
Definitely dystopian.
It can feel a bit dehumanizing.
Definitely weird.
You just feel isolated.
Interviews are supposed to be a two-way conversation.
Just looking at text on a screen.
Who we are, to understand, am I going to vibe with the company? Are they going to vibe with me? Let's figure out, is this going to work together rather than having this isolation, this feeling of just being left to talk to a blank screen.
And waiting for the timer to run out.
And now I'm doing the thing where I've said my answer, but there's still like 10, 20 seconds remaining, and I don't know how to fill up the rest of the time.
And sometimes
these are definitely common issues a lot of people have that they've mentioned to us at Voomer, is that idea that, oh, I didn't manage to fill the time. How can I confidently end? How short is too short? When can I finish early and make it seem like it's a confident answer versus if I finish early and it feels like I haven't prepared at all?
I find myself repeating myself because the timer, I kind of want the timer to go to 0. So sometimes I feel the pressure to kind of repeat myself, which I'm doing right now.
Definitely was doing it right then.
What advice would you give to other people going through one-way video interviews? I would say probably don't.
You can just talk.
That's a nice piece of advice. If only life was that easy. I feel like we hear a lot of candidates online saying don't do the interview, just chill out, only apply to places that don't use one-way video interview technology. Well, the thing is, when you apply, you might not know if a company has that technology or not as part of the hiring process. And secondly, not only might you not know, you might not have this ability to just sit on your laurels and be able to easily choose who you apply to and don't. If you really need a job, you need to generate income for your family, or you've just moved into a new place, graduated college, there's all these different situations people are in where they can't be so selective about which companies they apply to and don't apply to. They just have to suffer through the one-way interview. So I've heard that advice before. I've seen people comment it across our YouTube channel, but unfortunately for most people, that's not a luxury they can afford.
To yourself the day before or the morning off.
I used to record myself with my phone.
If you can find a nice dark wall and you can just tape up.
Can I just say his setup, and a lot of these people who are speaking to the camera, their setup is great. The eye line is on the top third. They've really perfected the art of doing one-way video interviews. So it seems like these guys are all on point.
Common questions about yourself that you can anticipate they'll ask.
So just to be clear, the flashing on your face, are you checking other tabs right now?
Oh yeah, should I stop that?
Okay, so he actually did these as part of a Zoom interview and then made it into a one-way video interview style, it seems, because he was able to talk to the candidate and say, stop looking at other tabs.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of these.
I mean, that was fucking great. I just got back from Pilates. But folks, if we let young people sitting in sad rooms on their laptops get the last word on everything, well then that word would be pornography. What I'm saying is, let's talk to some other people about this stuff, because obviously the dweebs who have to record these things to get a job are going to complain about it.
You remember your first HireVue?
Yeah, I don't remember what company it was for, but it was when I was looking for a job before I worked for HireVue.
I'll just say quickly is that it is not just entry-level people who are doing these HireVues. It's literally everyone who are doing one-way video interviews. I've seen pilots, people applying to the United Nations in senior positions, people who have been inside of a company for 5 years being asked to do a one-way video interview as part of their internal hiring process. It is every industry, it seems, that is using this type of technology, and it's at all levels, from entry level to experienced hires, and from all positions, from manual work, from cleaning up at a concert venue after events have finished, all the way up to some of the most intellectual positions you could imagine. This technology is being applied.
Dr. Lindsay Zulaga is a data scientist with a background in applied physics and AI ethics. For the past 8 years, she's also been the chief data scientist at HireVue, the very company that is one of the most popular third-party providers of one-way video interviews.
I think the messaging has gotten a lot better since then, because I was very confused about what was going on. And this could have been the company, not necessarily HireVue, because our customers have a lot of their own custom messaging.
Sure thing, Dr. Z, but as a HireVue higher-up, I had to put her in the hot seat and ask her to justify to my audience of rabid 20-somethings why HireVue's one-way video.
I will say, again, it's not just 20-somethings, although these are probably the people who are most vocal online about how they feel about one-way video interviews. This experience is shared from people who are 60 to 20. That is the people I've spoken to. They all have similar questions, queries, and challenges with the one-way video interview.
Idioties are beneficial.
Efficiency and fairness. We use AI to evaluate people's answers to interview questions, kind of rank them for our customers. So our customers have tons and tons of applicants. We started with video interviewing, but they still have a lot of video interviews to review, and it's really difficult to do that at scale. So we build algorithms that evaluate answers, check for bias in those algorithms. We know hiring is plagued with bias, and human decision making in hiring has a lot of well-known issues. It's also true that machine learning algorithms can exacerbate bias sometimes if you're not careful, right? So they learn patterns. If there's patterns that are biased, they're going to replicate those patterns. So you see a lot of headlines.
I'm not sure about HireVue's business model specifically, but you could imagine that not only are you selling the technology, which is maybe a yearly payment to utilize based on the number of candidates and based upon which technologies or packages you're selling, but also you have this consulting side to a business, I could imagine, where you're selling, oh, let us help you remove this bias, this legal liability that is over your head with hiring through a more engaged in-person process. That could be another side to a company that sells one-way video interviews. I'm not sure if it's HireVue does that in particular, but just from the way we're talking about bias, identifying bias within hiring and so on, it's a very topical talking point over the past 10 years, I would say, and definitely a way you could sell additional services into a business like this.
Around that, right? And how algorithms can be used in the wrong way, or they can kind of go wrong. If you're very careful, though, you can control it in a way that you really can't control the human mind. So we're basically saying to the algorithm, ignore anything that's going to cause bias. These are things that we measure all the time, and we see with our customers, they do end up getting more diverse candidates.
Now, Lindsay stressed that a common misconception about HireVue revolves around
I'm not sure about those comments. I'll leave it at that.
artificial intelligence. According to her, right now, only 20 to 30% of HireVue's customers use AI to score and rank interviews.
This is my understanding that actually in some states, I think particularly Illinois, it is illegal to use AI in ranking candidates, or at least you have to have candidates proactively accept and fully understand and explain how the AI works to rank and score them. And I believe that in practical terms has prevented AI from being used in the hiring process in some states.
Though she does think that more companies are getting more comfortable with that idea.
They need a sorting method. And so the question is that sorting method is just going to be something that nobody ever looks into, or are we going to be measuring its basic fairness?
Kathy O'Neill is a mathematician, data scientist, and author. She founded a consulting firm through which she audits algorithms to make sure they're not evil. She also plays bluegrass music, which is fun.
I typically ask for all the data that's available for how a particular algorithm treated people. And I look to see, how did it treat men versus women? How did it treat Black people versus white people versus Asian people versus Hispanic people?
HireVue has hired a few auditors to go through their AI algorithms and products, including Kathy here. The public results of these audits reflect pretty well of HireVue, but it's very important to point.
Well, I will say generally, as any company, and this is not HireVue specific in any way, but as any company, if you hire a law firm to do an investigation of a situation your company is involved in, if you hire an auditor or you pay for a certification, generally you are only going to publish those results if they are positive, reflecting of your company. That would be my understanding of a corporate mindset. Again, not speaking for HireVue particularly, but you're paying the bill, so you really are hoping for results that, as a company, and again, not HireVue in this situation necessarily or at all, often we find when companies investigate themselves, they tend to perform relatively well in those investigations, which is not particularly surprising.
Point out that these audits tend to focus on individual products and are not necessarily sweeping approval of all of HireVue's AI activities. And HireVue has been involved in some controversies. In 2019, an FTC complaint was brought against HireVue for its use of opaque algorithms and facial recognition technology. HireVue has since abandoned incorporating AI facial analysis into its tools. It's worth adding that Dr. Zulaga told us focusing on language is more equitable anyway. But here's another broader point for you folks to chew on. HireVue doesn't have to do these audits. They choose to. The auditors are also paid by HireVue, so while the auditors are independent, they're also getting paid by the people whose work they're policing. And this is just one example of a system we have in place to oversee the use of algorithms in hiring, a system that is lacking both regulation and the resources to back it up.
I believe that regulation is starting to be put in place, though, although it is very infant. And sometimes maybe it's too extreme by banning the practically in its entirety. So there's a balance to be found, I'm sure. I just don't feel that we're there yet, especially with not understanding the way fully that AI affects the hiring process and who gets hired. But one thing is for sure, the candidate experience with one-way video interviews seems to absolutely suck. You've got these state laws or city laws which are coming into effect. For instance, in New York, I think there's this disclosure of pay law where you have to say what the expected salary is for a position when you post it. And it seems like there are laws around AI usage and explainability and having these audits about what is actually happening when it is utilized as part of a hiring process or workflow. And in Illinois, I believe I mentioned earlier, there's this law around having explainability of AI models and the decisions and results that come from them, which fundamentally has meant that it's been not possible to use AI-based hiring tools in Illinois, or whichever state it was. I'm pretty sure it was Illinois, though.
Clear how New York City can even enforce this law because they don't have the technical capacity to do it. They don't have the data science expertise. They're not investing in this. They're taking this very hands-off approach to say that, oh, we'll just contract some companies and they'll figure this out for us.
And all of this adds up to a...
Even in AI research with a lot of the models, this idea of peering inside to understand how a model is working and how it is making decisions is a very complicated and nascent area of research. For instance, even if you could see the weights and understand how information is transmitted mathematically from one side to the other, how does that help you explain or rationalize in a way that a human can understand the concepts? The way in which the algorithms and machine learning work isn't necessarily directly relatable to human conception and understanding of decision making or evaluation. So even if you can peer inside how these models make decisions, does it actually help you understand how they are making decisions, how they've come to their conclusions, and is it something that you believe aligns with your ethics, your way in which you feel that decisions should be made within society. Definitely there's a lack of expertise, I think, within the research community itself around explainability. So the idea that a local city government could be able to bring to bear that level of understanding and audit the use of AI across companies seems unlikely to be possible.
A growing for-profit industry of AI hiring technology that is operating out of the spotlight with pretty much no oversight.
We don't know how employers or vendors of these tools test them. We don't know what the criteria are or why these are the meaningful criteria.
But folks, even a future as Terminator coded as this isn't gonna stop my money-hungry Gen Z hounds from applying to entry-level banking jobs. And there's even a litany of terrifying guides on
Oh my gosh. This is Voomer, this is our channel, so wow, okay. Yeah, excellent.
online that can prep you for giving your best virtual pitch.
Holy
Meanwhile,
shit.
others are even using AI themselves to come up with answers to the questions video.
And this was not pre-watched. Oh my goodness, that is definitely a somewhat unusual sight. I feel very blessed to be on this video, but wow.
For giving your best virtual pitch. Meanwhile, others are even using AI themselves to come up with answers to the questions video interviews pose. It's AI on AI, people. Hot.
This is often people's first exposure to the hiring process. Every time you're being evaluated, you kind of give up a part of yourself. And when it's put through software, it becomes increasingly dehumanizing.
Indeed.
It's a really thoughtful way of putting it. It reminds me of an art teacher that I had in high school who said they gave up professional art. They actually went to school with Tracy Emin, who is, of course, a world-renowned modern artist. And they said they didn't feel like they could keep giving themselves to art to have other people criticize, to review it. And it was taking away their love of creating art, and also almost like they were giving pieces of themselves away with each piece of art they put out into the public. It seems that with each one-way video interview we are putting a little bit of a piece of ourselves, our thoughts, our hopes, to get this position, to be able to sustain our families, to make a little money, to build a career that we've dreamt of. We're putting that little piece out there for hopefully someone to watch and appreciate the effort we put in. But there's that feeling that maybe nobody watched it. Maybe they watched the first 3 seconds of the answer response because they have so many candidates to review. Maybe they don't have the time to give me any feedback on how I could do better. And I think that's one of the big issues with one-way video interviews is not only has this technology been applied, but it's applied without any feedback, without any response, without knowing whether someone actually cared enough to review all of that time and effort you put into trying to provide the best answers to come across as a compelling candidate.
It is dehumanizing to sit against your nicest blank wall and list off 12 traits that make you a leader for some video that a corporate hiring team might never see because...
And there you go. Perhaps that video will never be seen.
Because HireVue's algorithm decided your intonation doesn't sound like a team player's. But what are you gonna do?
And that goes back to this comment good work put on the video below about HireVue and whether it uses intonation or not to rank or evaluate candidates. But that also speaks to the larger problem with one-way video interviews overall, no matter which company is providing them, is that candidates feel there's this lack of transparency or understanding of what about me is actually being analyzed. Is it going to be my eye contact with the camera? Is it going to be my engagement? Should I move around a bit? Should I be using my arms? Should I be speaking in more eloquent tones? Should I be using more thoughtful elocution throughout my answer? Nobody knows. And I think that is what breeds this distrust. It makes people feel incredibly uncomfortable about this seemingly unbalanced part of the interview process.
Not apply to Bank of America's internship program? Yeah, that's what I thought. So in the meantime, if you're out there in the trenches of internship or job interviews, my best advice is to do what I do. Dress impeccably, stare down the barrel of the camera.
Definitely, eye contact is considered by nearly all of the candidates we've spoken to the most important part of the one-way video interview.
Try to sound smart.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say fuck. Follow
That's a
these
really
steps,
bad
friends, and let the algo do the rest. For good work, I'm Dan Toomey. Thanks for watching, and we'll be in touch.
Whoa.
I gotta say, I think this is a great video. It's a sarcastic, funny take on what one-way video interviews are, which is a phenomenon in this generation that maybe will stick with us. It seems like it's going to be here for the long term. Who knows what the next iteration will be? We may feel very thankful that we only experienced the one-way video interview and not the next big hiring pipeline solution that is being cooked up currently. But yeah, give this video, I'll link it in the description. Definitely give it a watch through, like it, and subscribe to Good Work. I can't believe I'm not subscribed already, especially given that my face appeared in this video. So thank you for that. And let's just watch this last bit of the video. I can only imagine what the advice will be. Probably some of the advice will be don't do it at all.
Ooh.
Case studies you have to do over the one-way video interview, which I think is even more stressful than just those common tell me about yourself questions and the behavioral questions. Okay, we've got another reference to my thumbnail design. I feel like my life is now complete. I've made it onto a Good Work video as a meme. Great.
If I screenshot this, throw it in ChatGPT.
Okay, this is not good.
Probably isn't too far off from what someone would do during an interview. Time remaining. Time's up.
With 8 grades on eggs, actually, I'm not gonna be.
Well, I don't know, but eggs are very expensive right now.
No, they'll get there soon.
And well, that's a face a lot of people pull when they find out they're gonna get a one-way video interview and they type into Google, what the hell is a one-way video interview? If you haven't checked out Good Work, I think his videos are incredible. They're satirical, they're very funny overall, and I can't believe that I'm not subscribed yet, but I get suggested these videos all the time. So I'm subscribe it, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. I'll pop the link in the description below. And yeah, great to have become a meme. I think it's been very meaningful to be involved in helping people try and figure out these one-way video interviews and just be there to encourage them, to support them and say, hey, even though it's a shitty process, you can still get through it nonetheless. Anyway, on that note, like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. Don't forget to add a comment on your thoughts about becoming a meme in a Good Work video, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Good luck in your interview.